This episode is brought to you by Currey Company. Designers, you know the moment. You walk into the room and the lighting stops you in your tracks. Chances are it might be Currey. Currey Company has built its reputation on pieces that feel sculptural, collected, and timeless, from hand-finished chandeliers to statement lamps, furniture, and accessories. Their collection is top-notch. If you haven't explored their newest introductions, take a look. Visit curreyandcompany.com. Hi, I'm Laurie from To The Trade for Design Interior Design Community, and I have Jenny York with me. Hi, Jenny. How are you?
Hi, Laurie. Good to be here.
I am so excited. This is the second podcast you've been on because you were on our KBiz podcast, which was really fun. We do a live show from the KBiz floor, and we're kind of expanding that out to doing that for other shows. Like right now, we're kind of have some other things like that in the works. But it's always interesting when you're doing something that you normally do, in your own space, then you have to bring it into a trade show. And I was telling someone after our show how distracting it was when everybody was waving, taking selfies with us. We're like, we have actual questions we have to ask. And it was very, very chaotic, but I loved having you on. It was really fun. And I think a great topic
That was a great
because
conversation.
you work for Currey Company, which is, by the way, a sponsor for Interior Design Community, one of our very first. And they have such a strong family story. Why don't you tell the audience who might not know of Currey what Currey Company is and how it was founded?
Yeah, so we are a second generation family owned business and very proud of that. Robert and Suzy Currey founded us almost 40 years ago. We're coming up on our 40th anniversary and working on some exciting plans for that. Originally as a garden furniture company, and we are now owned by their son, Brownlee, who's about my age. And we're, like I said, very proud to be family owned. Very important to us in this world where we see a lot of our peers and a lot of the industry and a lot of other industries going toward a private equity model and sort of changing and losing a little bit of what they sort of were about. And
Yeah.
we love that we're able to kind of control our own destiny, but also sort of preserve our heritage, preserve our, I hate to say integrity, but just sort of preserve kind of the spirit of what we've always been able to do and bring ourselves to the party. So we
Yeah.
can stay very Curry because we are still Curry
It
in
really
all the
does
ways.
feel like that when you walk in. Everyone says that, when you come to High Point, I don't think a designer misses a stop at Curry because it just feels like family. It feels, you always have obviously the best drinks and and food, but it's also the people, and you want to see those faces, see Cecil and Bethan and of course, Robert and Brownlee. It's just like an amazing old home week when you come there and you're seeing all these wonderful faces. And do you feel like that relationship building has impacted how Curry is seen to the design community?
That's so important, and really, that's the reason that I'm at Curry. So my background is editorial, and
No.
as I, in my late 20s, so quite a long time ago, started to cover the industry and really, Beth Ann does such a great job with their editorial relationships, and, she really fostered that, and that's how I got to know the Currys was, these frequent editorial visits way back when, and building that relationship with Robert and Susie and Brownlee and Bob and Cecil and Beth Ann and
Yeah.
and everybody. And so when the time came to come work for them, it was, really an easy decision. But I think we all sort of feel that. So it's not just editorial relationship. I think designers feel that as well. And our retailers, other customers, even our peers in the industry, we try to have a very open door policy. We don't close off the walls of our showroom. You don't have to check in to get through. We try to have a very welcoming atmosphere and want to sort of be friends to everyone in the industry. And I'm glad that you feel that because we want to project that.
Yeah, I think that has been a changing mindset through the years. I mean, and people definitely remember days when no designers allowed. And I think there's a misinterpretation of what that was back when that was happening. I think that was actually really to prevent copyright issues more than it was to keep designers out. You just couldn't tell whether it was someone who was going to knock off your product versus a designer because that's how those people came in. So I think that it gets a bad rap when brands had these no designers allowed signage, but some of them really didn't want designers and
Oh,
designer
yeah. I
business.
think some of them definitely didn't.
Yeah. And
Designers were a lot of work for a small order,
they
and
are, yeah. And, you have to change your mindset when you're working with the design trade. It doesn't work the same way that a showroom works. What were some of the early things that you remember when you're taking this on? I mean, as far as I remember, you were one of the very first companies to start really thinking differently
Mhm,
about the design trade, and how
mhm.
you could learn about how designers really worked and what their pain points were, and trying to lower the friction with designers. But what did that look like when you first came on and you're first starting to tackle this as a problem, and how you would learn about it? What were you doing?
So this predates me at Curry,
Yeah.
but it was very much during my time in the home accents industry. And it was certainly a topic of conversation because at that point, I was interacting with a lot of our peers and a lot of the industry and sort of watching the struggle happen and watching companies make this shift if they were willing to. And some did it well and some didn't. And Curry definitely was an early adopter to embracing this channel of distribution. And I know now, and I know from, having the conversations then, that it wasn't an easy thing to do. There's a risk of alienating your retail customers because, and we still see it that, we're all competing for those designers. The designers are also their customers. And so, you want to protect your retail base. So you have
Mhm.
to do it in a very strategic way, but knowing that designers, there's a lot of them. They can be very profitable business partners to you, and they're great because they're helping direct great sales to your company, and they're really the brand ambassadors who are gonna sell your product for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, if you're not embracing that type of customer, you are missing a huge opportunity to grow your business. And whether they're buying directly from you, on a direct account, or whether they're buying you from a retail partner, we don't necessarily care. We want them to specify Curry. So we want to be available to them, whatever the best way for them to do business is. Designers are a different breed. It is a different way of doing business. You have to change how your warehouse operates. You have to change your customer service. You have to be able to answer the phone and answer questions, and you have to be willing to take smaller orders. And, your traditional order minimums can't really apply in a lot of cases, and a level of customer service that is a step up. And those were all areas where Curry took that step and made those investments
Yeah.
way back when.
That is something that I think, I'm not sure every designer, especially if you're a new designer in the last 5 years, probably recognizes that shift and how that really worked. But people who've been in the industry longer can definitely recall and see how that might work. And you can imagine, there's a manufacturer out there, they're used to dealing with, stores, then e-commerce comes along, and you have e-commerce options, and then you have this direct sale option, and through designers, and that comes with its own challenges and its own buyers who need a different level of customer service, and so from a rep standpoint, I do feel for reps who were used to dealing with people who really know the product because they're ordering it on a regular basis and they know how to order it. They know they aren't going to make as many mistakes with, fabric choices, or, the size and dimensions, because they're ordering for inventory versus someone who is ordering for a space. And then, does the client like it? Do they want to return? Is there something wrong with it? Is that, it's just like and the level I think designers look at product versus how a shop would look at a product are two different models too. And then you've got receiver layer and how all these different people touching the shipping and receiving, the installers touching the product, and like there's a lot of like who did what at all times.
Yeah,
So
I think the
it's
sales
not
rep piece
easy. It's not as
is
easy as people think, right?
is
I mean,
really
to
important
change
and really
that.
tough, and I think
Yeah.
we still see it, and I think especially in some of the furniture companies that have, said they're designer friendly now, designers go into the showrooms and they say, "We're ready to write an order," and they're like, "Well, our minimums are X." Like,
Yeah.
"Whoa, I can't do that. I wanted to order a sofa set."
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I have one
and
client
they're like,
right now
you
that's
know,
ready to
and the
go.
reps who are used to writing these big orders, you know, calling on a customer who's, may only write every 18 months.
Yeah.
And it's so having a sales force that can not only service your big accounts, but, in a lot of cases, very, very tiny accounts
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
lots and lots of them. It's a very different mindset. And it's, sort of a readjustment of your sales force. So whether that's having a design specific sales force or training your reps to handle both, what our sales force does. They do all of the above. But it's not always
And that's
easy.
a change
And
too. That's a mind shift for
absolutely.
your team. And sometimes the team doesn't
Mhm.
want to make those changes. And
Yeah.
I know Curry has even made, changes within the organization and who is still working there because this
Yeah.
is a direction that you wanted to go. And so those are things that a brand is thinking about when they're shifting their mindset. It's a big beast. It's like you're moving a giant ship that is going in one direction. It doesn't happen quickly and it doesn't happen without expense. One of the things I think is really fascinating about our conversation earlier, and I've talked to hundreds of brands, and one of the things you said that sometimes I find the brands will talk to me about designers because they know I am an advocate for designers. And I obviously can read the subtext. And sometimes I'll stop the meeting and I'm like, wait a minute here. You don't like designers. You just don't like them. And that's got to change before the culture of liking a designer has to change if you're going to want to work with designers. And one of the things you said early on was that, and this was surprising to me. Okay. So it was that you like smaller orders too from designers. You want to service those clients as well as your clients that are buying as much product as they can. And I haven't heard a sales executive from this industry ever say that. So that was like when we were at KBiz, that was a really wonderful and surprising thing that we care about these small one, if you're ordering one fixture a year.
It's in a lot of ways, it's our bread and butter. We have
Right.
so many. If you look at sort of the long tail of our, there's the big ones and then but the very long tail of very small customers. And that is, in a lot of ways, the core of our business. And we're never going to walk away from that, whether they grow with us or not,
Yeah.
whether our
I mean,
pieces are
that's
right for every
exciting
project or
though,
not.
that
There's
you're
so many designers out there, and if we have a piece that's gonna fit them once a year, then why would we miss that opportunity?
I just love it that that's how you see it because I think that's not the typical response that I tend to see. It's always, a growth play or it's we'll tolerate this, because it's part of it, but we're not really looking for it. And so that's just really wonderful and surprising. And one, I think that designers should be really, I would love to see designers get a little bit more strategic with their sales and with the money that they are allocated for projects in working with brands that see
Sure.
them that way. I mean, ideally, that's what you want to be doing because you have choices where you're spending your money, and you definitely want to be thinking about who is caring about me on the back end. Who really wants the sale from me and wants to invest to make it easier on my life and will stand behind the product. So, those are things I think designers have to be really thinking about, as well as like, is it in the budget? Is it this right size, the right style? You're also like, is this company really designer friendly? And are they a good partner for my brand? So
Yeah, I think that's we talk about this a lot, is we wanna be the company you feel good about doing business with.
yeah,
So, from an ethical standpoint, from a customer service standpoint, we want to be those partners
yeah.
in all the ways.
I love it. Now, let's talk a little bit about your background. You worked as an editor, market executive, brand leader. How has your unique perspective shaped the way you work with designers today?
So I started at Furniture Today magazine when I was 22. So I'm coming up on 30 years in the home furnishings business. I've almost done nothing else. I had uh, about an 11-month stint at a daily newspaper. And since then, I've only been home furnishings specific. And in 20 years at an editorial role, I spent months, a year working all these trade shows and getting to know all the owners of the companies, getting to know designers, retailers, interviewing people, writing these stories, learning their stories, covering all these market centers and watching the transitions from shows that came in and came out and shows that have gotten bigger, watching the founding of Las Vegas market, watching San Francisco and New York and Los Angeles and Chicago, and those shows kind of fade away from and watching Dallas and Atlanta kind of hold their own, and High Point grow, kind of come down a little when Vegas started, then come back in a booming way. So sort of watch this whole evolution over time, watch the designers come up in a major way.
Yeah.
Then when I left the magazine world and went to America's Mart for a couple of years, really with the charge of growing the design business in that space. And then I moved to Currey, also in Atlanta, which is obviously a very designer-focused brand. So, my charge at Currey, beyond just our marketing role, is really engaging the design customer, which is our biggest channel of distribution, our most profitable channel of distribution, but also the one where we see the most growth opportunity and the biggest, it's such a big pool, but also the area where we can really leverage our relationships and maximize our relationships. And with people on our staff like Beth Ann and Cecil, and, that, being that kind of family business and being known and really working that from a very personal level. It's one thing to place ads, and it's one thing to sort of, put your branding on everything and just kind of put a logo on things. We want to be in all the places. We want to personally be engaged. We want to get to know these people. So whether that's showroom tours or parties or conferences that we're attending, it is an engagement. It is personal. It's a very high touch strategy. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of time, but I think it's what's helped us kind of learn about the design community and understand the design community. It's why, I came to you when I first came to Currey, and it's like, how can we work together? Because I want to know more about designers. I want to understand how they think, help us be better at learning about the design community.
Okay, so looking back, when you think of when you started at Currey versus where you are right now, what do you think is like one of your proudest accomplishments, and what you have like put your stamp, the Jenny stamp, on Currey? What do you think you're the most proud of?
When I started in 2019, it had been a minute since they'd sort of had anyone sort of leading the marketing team. And then we, barreled straight into COVID. And at that point, we couldn't do trade shows, couldn't do the things that Currey kind of did best. And suddenly we became all marketing, right? It was all communications. So
I don't know what's going on with her.
it's okay.
Okay, she's just aggravated that someone came to the door at all. So, Let's start over. You were. It's been a while since anyone has taken over marketing. What did you think that was? I mean, I can't even wrap my mind around how you come in and because I feel like you've made a huge impact on the way that designers perceive Currey, for sure. But what were those early things that you were thinking about?
Yeah, I remember Brownlee telling me, he's like, when you come in here, he's like, you're probably gonna see a lot of things you want to do and you want to change. He's like, take 6 months, learn. He's like, I know you know us, but just sit back, learn how we operate from the inside. Ask a lot of questions, but don't try to change a lot. Just, kind of try to absorb it and understand from this side how we operate and why we do what we do. And I thought that was really good advice. And at the time, you're hungry, you want to do things, you want to prove that you're here to do things, and that you want everyone to earn the respect of your new peers. And you kind of feel like, I'm not doing enough. But in retrospect, it was really good advice, because it did allow me to kind of take in the culture of the company. And again, I knew a lot of them, but I knew sort of the front facing, the people that I would meet at markets, but I didn't know much at all about sort of the inside of Currey and operationally and customer service and finance teams and the warehouse, certainly, and even our design teams, very peripherally. So it was great for me to kind of learn the inside of the operation, which helps give a stronger voice to what we do on the outside. So as I was learning that, and then we go kind of barreling into a COVID moment where all of a sudden we can't be as outside as we were, having gotten some of that. And, like I always said, it's like all we can do now is market and use our marketing tools and come up with creative ways to get our voice out there and get our products out there and just kind of find ways to innovate and still communicate, and having those deep relationships at that moment from not just my side, certainly not just my side, but the company had allowed us to really sort of grow in that moment and take advantage, not take advantage, but, just sort of kind of seize an opportunity to, because we knew so many people and because we already had the foundation laid with all the design business and these relationships, that we were in a better position maybe than most to, everybody grew during COVID, right? Like
Right.
all the home became more important, but we were able to take that, and we never fell back off after the COVID boom. We've we've sort of kept that going and continuing to grow. And so that's what I feel like at a moment when everything became marketing, is like just being able to innovate in that space during that really difficult time
Yeah.
was something I certainly feel proud of. And then, yeah, I think, building the relationship with you, continuing to grow our design business, and Brownlee's trust in me to kind of take the lead on our design business, which is a very, it's our biggest channel. And that's it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of trust in me
Yes.
to sort of take that. And it's having these relationships, and it's having someone like you, and it's having all these partnerships where I've got someone I can ask questions to, and like, how can we be better? What can we do to continually strive to be better and more important to the design community?
Yeah. I even feel like in the last few years that I've partnered with Lee and run the conference for Design Edge, and now that I'm learning a lot more about the showroom angles, because I mean, I've always been really connected obviously to how designers run their businesses, but I'm now learning a lot more about how the brands run their businesses and how the showrooms run their businesses, by having great conversations with those folks as well. And seeing all the sides that you see, and how the design trade can move forward, and how we can work together, and how we can strategize together if we are really thinking of it as a global strategy. I really think there's so many people that are fatigued with junk, like the fast furniture world, and buying things that look beautiful online but then don't have the substance. That's
Yeah,
really, I think that consumers are tired of it. They're tired of wasting their resources on things that don't last, and they don't have a story, or they don't have a heritage. And I think that one of the things that is so special about Curry is that everything has a story, and everything has heritage, and everything has meaning behind it, and everything has quality first. So, that is, I think, something that designers need to be really considering as they make their brand selection, is thinking about the whole picture and what you're bringing to the table, and then providing those stories to the client too. So, and one of the things that I think brands really could be maybe thinking about is that, because I've had this conversation with the showroom level quite extensively, is that designers are often craving business education, and that's why they come to interior design community, is
mhm,
because they're craving business education. And we don't really, our job is to make sure that designers are making more money, and that they're happier, and it's a healthier industry. So I don't care where they get it. I just want them to get the education that they
sure.
need to be successful. And so I've been working on how can we bolster also the showroom level with editorial calendars that would make sense to increase business education at the ground floor, at the grassroots, where designers, you're going to have certain portion of designers who are direct buy, and then some that are serviced by showrooms. We need the showrooms too. There are some great showrooms out there across the country that are doing amazing things. So how do you give them the tools that they need to get people in and having good conversations together, so that we're all, have a little bit less, more transparency on rates, more transparency on process, on how people run their projects and successfully make a living doing this thing that is so wonderful, and so creative, but also incredibly demanding, and so many things that are out of a designer's control on a daily basis. So I love that you think about this from an operational standpoint. We've been thinking about it from an operational standpoint as far as a global, like overarching, how designers can be serviced in the best possible way and how we can crack those problems. And our industry needs that. We need people who are committed to making things better, in incremental ways, because it's not an overnight process, no matter what it is. We're all trying to do our very best to, to bolster. And there's linked to sales, sure, certainly, and revenues, but I think all of us need to care about the money aspect of design too, but there's also doing the right thing. So
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I feel like, yes, there's a hunger for quality but I think there's really a hunger for less division and more relationships, and for things to be, I don't know, more real in all the ways.
yes,
So, yeah, and that, that the relationships are real too, and they're not
yeah,
just driven by dollars, and they're not just driven
algorithm.
by,
Like,
yeah, and it's,
you
yeah,
do
so
this, you're going to get this email, and then this email, and then, you know,
yeah, exactly. Not everything's so formulaic and AI'd and, that
yeah,
it's the and everything's changing, the world's changing, certainly, our industry's changing too, but where we can stay as true to who we are from a product standpoint, yes, but from a people standpoint, maybe even more importantly. And
I could not agree with you more. And when you think about that, how do you feel like Curry does balancing creative, the creative side, thinking about product, thinking about expansion, and how the company relates versus those, I also know, like, Brownlee to be a very data driven person and very analytical as well. So how do you balance those two things, the practical creative inspiration and the practical needs that designers have to have around, like, inventory, shipping, deadlines,
yeah.
all the things that are just like nuts and bolts?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is that, again, we're family owned. We can control our own destiny. We're not so focused on how we spend every dollar because we don't have to justify it to a bank. So that'll gives us a little more creative freedom when we tend to turn our designers loose and let them design to what they want to design. So we give them some creative briefs and a little direction, for a longer term, but really let them bring back to us what they're feeling. And so as we go through these ordering meetings, then as we're picking what we're going to be introducing, yeah, we're looking at, the price points and, how realistic is this? But also, we're not afraid to take chances there. Um, we do most of our manufacturing in the Philippines at a factory that we mostly own. So again, we can, order limited quantities in most cases, so we don't have to take too big of a risk. But we are going to buy the inventory, so we're going to have those pieces. So we are going to be able to service those orders. We're not going to just say, if you like it, we'll order it for you. Like, we're going to have those pieces in inventory. So, it is taking a risk in a lot of ways because not everything hits, and so, but because we can find our way through those products. Um, Taking those risks allows us to to bring those special pieces. If we were constantly focusing on only the safe and only the ones that we know we're gonna sell, then we would lose all of our edge and all of our interest. So, yes, we try to be data data guided, but not data, only.
Right.
So that because we don't that would take away all of what makes us the best.
Yeah, it's the heart.
And we can see that
Mm.
happening
Yeah,
in some peers. It's like, if you go super safe, then you can be so safe that, you safe yourself right out of the market
right.
because
Yeah.
everybody can do that same thing. And so, you can't allow that. But, it doesn't mean we're not making wise decisions. And sometimes, yeah, we'll do something that we think is great and does not work at all. And that's okay.
You have to
That
be willing to
that's
fail
part of the
sometimes.
exactly, yeah,
That's
that's
really
part of
hard
the
for me. You know, I am a perfectionist in that way. Like I want everything I do to be at a certain level. But it is. I have a friend of mine, and she's like, "What is your biggest fear?" And I was like, "I don't want to fail at anything. I like my reputation is, obviously matters so much to me in the design industry, and I don't want to be do something." But you're right. If you want to do something exceptional, you have to be willing to put yourself out there and take the big swings. And with the big swings come failure sometimes. And that's not an easy pill to swallow, especially if money is behind that failure, an investment. So that's really interesting. What do you think makes a designer? I know designers are always thinking, how can I want the brands to know me too? They very much feel like the brands are an extension of their business. Oftentimes they're a solo entrepreneur, and so they're representing the brands as they walk in and talk to clients. And many brands have been long-term partners for designers in their career and have bolstered a designer, during the tough times too. So what makes a designer memorable to Curry? Like, what are things that they can do that you would find they would stand out to you if they did this for you?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think we love to see designers at market, and that's why we, as much as anyone, have maintained these permanent showrooms in Dallas, Atlanta, High Point, Las Vegas. They're expensive, they're tough to maintain. We're on the road constantly, doing design edges, doing these other conferences, doing KBIS now, doing BDNY. Feel like we're going from show to show, but it
I
is
watched you. You are going.
yeah, it is so that we can see them in person.
Yeah.
Um, so getting to see them, coming to see us at a show is very important to us. And we try to make our showrooms compelling enough, and whether it's our lunch offerings or whatever, compelling enough that you will come see us. So that is, we feel like if you see our products in person, it's a very different experience than seeing us. We have a great website, but seeing us in person is a whole different experience. So coming to see us is very important. We love social media interaction. We are really working hard on us trying to interact more. But when designers tag us in their projects and they've used us, and we have the opportunity to, with their permission, pick up those projects and share them on our own social media, share those installation images. We cannot, with the volume of pieces that we do, especially with hardwired lighting, we cannot create enough photography and shoot enough photography fast enough. It's not feasible. So when designers are, and we're not designers. So,
Yeah.
you know, designers are doing this beautiful work with our pieces. So, like, letting us have access or even just see the way our pieces are being used is intensely valuable to us
Yes. And I
and
want to say that
helps
while
us
we're
to
talking
promote
about
them. But
it, a designer told me this years ago, and she feels like she really, um, really has maintained really great relationships with her brands because of this one trick and is she takes her own photography that she owns the copyright
Mhm,
of,
mhm.
and that she can say here to the brand, you can
Yep.
use this however you want.
Yep.
I don't have to go through anyone else. I took these photos. It's my work.
Yep.
She does her best to edit them so that they're great. Sometimes she does it on the same set as the photographer's coming in that day. So it's all styled, it's all perfect. She's just like framing those shots and getting really good product shots of all the different products that she works with and the brands that she works with over and over again, so she can pass that back to the reps and manufacturers as a thank you. And she says, I just really want you to see how your piece looks in in my project. And it's done wonders for her career, she believes. So she's like a real hack in how she treats the manufacturers back. And I think every designer should take that and remember that there are a ton of craftsmen and craftswomen that you're representing in that project, and that they never get to see it in its home place. It's like very rare that they get to see it beautifully styled in a gorgeous setting. And it means so much to you as the manufacturer to get those images back to in a usable
In
way.
so many ways, it's great
Yeah.
for our business, but you're right. And just seeing it, it's like when you go to a nice hotel and you see a curry piece in the lobby, like seeing curry in the wild is always like, "Ooh, look what I just
Woo,
found."
yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
it's
I was
incredibly
at
valuable to us.
the SKS booth at in KBiz, and every single person that was near me was like, "Who made that chandelier?"
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, "I have an answer. It's Curry."
Yeah.
So it was just beautiful. And when you do see it and you can really, you know, feel it, it's remarkable. So I love, love, love that, that's the case for Curry. And I do want to tell all the designers that's something that you can do that's free, that you can give back. And sometimes there is this weird mindset of like, people thinking, why should I do that? Because they're a big company. I'm paying for the photo shoot. And I'm telling you, getting in that mindset versus the mindset of like, we're all a team here. We're trying to grow our industry as a team. It, I caution you to be thinking in that way, because a brand really can't afford to pay for hundreds of images of every product that they make. It's thousands and thousands and thousands of products. So there's no way they could like hardwire and make up a set for every single image or pay for every single image,
For sure.
you
For
know,
sure.
and it matters so much to them, it really does. And so it's a way of goodwill that it really doesn't cost you anything to take a photo and send it to the right person and say, thank you. Your work was part of our project. It doesn't cost us anything to be kind, and it matters so much to the relationship. So I
And,
would,
we're trying, and we've talked about this too. We're trying to find ways to incentivize that
yeah,
too from our standpoint. So,
yeah, of course.
because it does help us grow our business, and having people be ambassadors for us, it means a lot more when a designer is advocating for us than just me running an ad,
Oh,
you
and
know?
they do. They talk when
Mhm.
a designer has that, like, "This is a brand that I love." Those are
Mhm.
things that you want as a brand, you want designers saying, because they can say the opposite too. I mean, I could just say to brands, I'm like, every designer I know is in a text group with like 10 other people. And
Yeah,
so if you've let them down, 10 people know. Expect at least 10 other designers to know about it the same day. So
absolutely.
really think about it, and how that impact can get out there, and really addressing those issues as they come up, and being as much of a partner as you can. And that doesn't always mean, sometimes it's emotional, um like support, not necessarily financial support. Sometimes it just stinks, like things
Sure.
went wrong, things happened, and having someone who cares that you're going through this as a designer and you're by yourself on this. It's wonderful to have a support system when things go wrong. So I love that. I would say the home furnishings industry has changed pretty dramatically in recent years. What shift do you think had the biggest impact on our industry?
Yeah, and I think the COVID moment was certainly a big one,
Yeah.
and I think, as you mentioned, sort of the shift toward better quality, which has certainly helped us, at the higher end. Um, I think in my tenure over 30 years, watching the way the trade show industry has really changed, and we've gone from so many, there's still a lot, but there used to be way more, and now they're a lot more condensed, and now we may see people maybe once a year where we used to see them 2, 3, 4, 5 times a year. So people aren't going to as many markets. So when we do see them at a show, it's got to be super impactful, and we got to sort of seize those moments. And there's a lot of designers and particularly who don't go to any markets. So
Yeah.
finding ways to communicate when there isn't as much face-to-face opportunity is something that we're all contending with. And, how is that? Is that social media? Are print catalogs still important? How does your website function and interact? These are the things that we as marketers are kind of dealing with every single day. What is the way that we can best reach these people? Because there's so many of them. We know that a lot are coming to shows, but a lot are not. And
Yeah.
so, there's been so many transitions over time, and feeling like we kind of have to be in all the places
Yeah. I
to
mean,
make
one of
sure
the
we're
things
meeting everybody as best we can wherever they are.
I was thinking about was those product videos that you and I talked about. And I had Cecil message me 10 different stories
Mhm.
for products that Curry has. And I had a bunch of brands reach out too. And we've been collecting them and trying to put them out bit by bit. And I love that concept because it's like that easy learning. It's, 1 minute, 1 minute video that teaches you about one thing, it's, I think we can all have the time to do that. And it's that spoonful of sugar, quick learning models,
Yeah.
that I think are going to be really important. I'd love to see less of AI doing that. I really can't stand the talking head AI videos.
Yep.
I'm seeing more and more and more of those pop up. How do you see AI impacting the home furnishings industry and Curry specifically?
So I'm pretty resistant, and I think that's, the editor in me, the journalist in me. It's really hard for me to kind of give our voice to a computer. So I've not. Um and so I'm gonna be the kind of the old lady in the room is like, I'm not comfortable with that. Um so, where we're using it is more on sort of data analytics and, sales projections and that kind of thing. But I think from a creative and a voice standpoint, I'm not there. I don't
Yeah.
think our designers are there. I don't want to go there. Um, there is some useful benefits for us in creating imagery, creating room scenes that again, we can't create them fast enough. So we lean more heavily on CGI than AI. Um, but with the demands for constant imagery and more and more and more, we're going to have to lean in a little harder on AI. But we're only going to do it if it's up to the standard of the imagery that we are comfortable putting out and that looks like something that we would actually create on our own.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, I'm going to be the
I don't
Luddite
mind.
when it comes to the AI
I
space.
am in
But
the same boat as you. I think that you got to, I use it for the back end things all the
Mhm,
time and things that I wouldn't get to myself if it's like increasing the productivity
right.
side for me. It's not about the creative or the ideas. In fact, a lot of ideas that come out of AI are complete garbage.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you have to really go through it with a brain and
Mhm,
say
mhm.
that makes sense. That does not make sense. And I would never say that. So, um, it's like you're constantly editing AI. AI can't just, that's why I think it's so crazy when you see these videos out that are like, "Oh, well, AI just ruined it for all interior designers. They are out of business." It's like, okay, sure. Tell me how AI can, handle a tile being set in properly and you're having a discussion with the tile guy and making him redo it.
Right.
Let's the AI do
Right. Right.
that. Yeah. So what's next for Curry? I'm just curious. Is there anything we should be excited about going forward?
We do have something exciting coming out. I cannot tell you because we just
Ah!
decided on it this week. Yes, for the fall, we've got some exciting new additions. But really, we've been doing a lot lately. So the cordless lighting collection was big over the last
I
probably
love the
18
cordless
months.
lighting collection.
Adding bath vanities was a great new addition for us. So, we're not going to go into whole home bedroom, dining room collections, but we do keep adding on product categories that are adjacent to us and just broadening our reach a little bit at a time and finding niches where we can take what we do and expand, just a little bit further into, adjacent spaces. And so we're excited about that. And yeah, we'll have something new for the fall in that area.
Wonderful. Exciting. And maybe we'll have a curry party for interior
Of
design
course, we'll
community
have a
yet.
curry
Yes.
party. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jenny. This has been fantastic. I hope that all of you go check out Curry. We're going to make sure everyone follows you and that we can have these videos and podcasts everywhere so that people know what a great brand that you represent.
Yeah, we'll
Wonderful.
be in Atlanta, Dallas, Vegas this summer, then back in High Point in the fall, and
Woohoo.
it's back on the circuit, so
I know your frequent flyer miles must be take your family to Europe or
we'll
something.
do it. Thanks, Laurie.
Bye.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
This episode is sponsored by SKS Luxury Appliances. If you've spent time around Signature Kitchen Suite, one thing designers notice right away is the technology. The interface feels familiar and intuitive because it's the same engineering that comes from LG, the company that produces the systems used in many of the luxury vehicles people drive today. Clients recognize it instantly and know how to navigate it, but SKS is also investing in designers through their Designer Rewards program and by sponsoring IDC. If you're specifying kitchens for serious cooks, give SKS a look. Learn more at sksappliances.com. SKS, built for people who truly love cooking.